y me llama el cocinero. Risita, ¿qué? Ve por la paellera. Venga, que las 2 de la tarde ya están aquí. Miren, bañador, en las chanclas. Todo despeinado porque no me dio tiempo nada ponerme las chanclas y el bañador. Voy a la playa, había subido la marea. Eso. Eso. Había subido la marea y encontré una paella.
Hey guys, hope you're all having a good day. So the new patch just went live. The Crusader got hit pretty hard with nerfs, especially if you're a Battlegrounds or PvP player. So let's quickly talk about the nerfs first, and then I'll be sharing my new PvP build, which I like to play, which I've been working on over the last couple of weeks, and I feel like I've improved it to a pretty good state at the moment, that it actually does really, really well, and you'll see how well it does. I'll have some clips in the video later, but let's just quickly first talk about the nerfs which they did. So firstly, we've got the pretty big nerf here to Conjuration of Light. So Conjuration of Light, the cooldown in Battlegrounds and Rite Exile becomes 32 seconds. So it seems like they've increased the cooldown, and gaining Conjuration of Light again within 20 seconds reduces its duration by 50%. So basically what they've tried to do here is that if there are Crusaders which are kind of stacking this Conjuration of Light effect to kind of increase the immune duration, now if you gain another Conjuration of Light within 20 seconds, you'll have its duration, the buff of the immunity, reduced. So it's a pretty huge nerf if you play in group with Crusaders, and teams which just like to stack Crusader and rely on the strategy of being immune all the time, that strategy isn't going to work anymore. So I'm actually kind of okay with this nerf. The longer cooldown is a bit annoying, but I find that this change is actually okay, because if you're stacking Crusaders in a team, like so let's say 4 Crusaders, it can be really annoying and kind of locks people out of doing any kind of damage if you have a decent sync and people are just stacking Conjuration of Light one after the other. If you have 4 Crusaders especially, it's going to be really, really rough for you to get any kind of damage in. So overall, I feel like this is a decent change. So next we have Falling Soul, which also got nerfed if you're using the most popular essence, which is the Luminous Rain. So the outright damage got reduced by 15%, and also each time an instance of damage is resolved, an enemy will be damaged at most once more. So this is a pretty bad nerf because it kind of nerfs a lot of the damage for some of the most popular builds for Crusader. I mean, if you're playing open world farming, this one's going to be still going to be fine because you're going to be one-shotting most of the mobs anyway, so you won't need the extra ticks of damage. But for PvP, it is pretty annoying to have this kind of damage reduction and also the limitation to only having it be able to target once more. So finally, we have the nerf to the chest essence, which is the Hell Pilgrim essence for Drawn Quarter. So now this reads that it does knockback immunity for 4 seconds only after you mount on your horse. And previously this was 4.8 seconds at Mastery 4. So this is a pretty bad nerf, I would say, also because this is affected by your beneficial effect duration. They've effectively reduced this by 20%, but I guess they thought this was a bit too strong. I'm really not sure this nerf was necessary, to be honest. I mean, it's kind of hard to play any kind of Drawn Quarter builds in Battlegrounds unless you've got this chest on, but yeah, I guess they thought it was just a bit too overpowered and broken. So before we start and talk about my PvP build, which I've been using, let's quickly look at the meta PvP build, which most players are using at the moment. It looks kind of like this, and it comes as no surprise that this build features all of the skills and essence which have been recently nerfed, but it's still performing okay-ish, I would say. So you could still use this build, and I'm sure that a lot of Crusaders will still continue using this build, but let's just quickly talk about it. So first you've got the Mask of Condemnation. So this helmet buffs your attack speed and also your critical hit chance, as well as the critical hit chance and attack speed of your summons, which is important because we're using the Drawn Quarter summons pants, the Light Striders. So this will summon the 2 horses that knock back enemies. We're using the Hell Pilgrim chest, which gives you the knockback immunity, which got nerfed, so now you'll have less time to be immune to knockbacks, which is going to be a bit annoying playing this build. You have the Sifket's advantage, which increases your horse duration. So you've got the longer horse summons, and you're using the Unholy Wall, which gives you the movement speed on the banner. This is a really good essence to have in PvP, especially if you're not using the traditional mounted horse. This gives you really good movement speed, up to 45%, and you pretty much have this all the time because your horse summons give you the 2 extra allies, which you need to get to this maximum bonus. And then for the offhand essence, some people use the Lust of Titanic for a more defensive option, and other people use the Other offhand, which gives you explosions on your block from Punish, but both are decent options. And then you're using the Luminous Rain main hand, which has the Falling Sword effect, which follows you, reduces the enemy movement speed, and does the ticks of damage, which got nerfed. And then finally, you're using the Observer main hand, which works with Punish, and any enemy struck with Punish take 19% extra damage, up to 57%, a very strong essence. And then for the sets, most people use 4 Mount Bank and 4 Vithus. And this build still works pretty well, I would say. So the rotation would go something like this. You'd summon your horses, and then you'd press the banner, and then you're going to have this extra attack speed as well as your horses also. And also you'd want to be pressing your Falling Sword every time it's off cooldown just to slow enemies. And anytime you're in danger or you want to pre-pop your Conjuration, you can do that. So it's a pretty simple build to play, I would say. And I've had pretty good success playing this build. I actually took this build all the way to Legend rank. So currently I am rank 5 Legend. And I was pretty happy with this build, but I wanted to work on a different kind of build with the new essence. I kind of got bored with playing it, to be honest, and I wanted to kind of take Crusader in a bit of a different direction, especially after seeing all of these nerfs that we got. So right now I'm sitting at rank 5 Legend on my server, and I actually dropped all the way down to Gold 5, kind of the bottom of Gold 5, just testing different kinds of builds. I think I started with like 61% or something win rate, and I tanked down all the way to 58% because I was just testing all different kinds of stuff. I think I tested Shield Charge, I tested Sacred Chain, I also tested Condemn and trying to make a build work with Condemn and Torrential Refrain, and I didn't really have success with any of those builds. But what I did have success with is a new kind of build which uses the Iron Faith Sweep Attack Stun. And this works extremely well with the new Drawn Quarter pants, which gives you the White Horse with increased attack speed. So let's quickly talk about this build. I'll just equip it. So for the skills, we're still using Conjuration of Light. This is just too good to pass up on. Even with the nerfs, I would say this is probably a must-have on almost every single Crusader build that you want to play in PvP. This is still just really good. And to be honest, if there's not too many Crusaders in your team, this will perform almost the same as before. So this is still a must include in the build. We're using the Drawn Quarter with the Swift Twin Steed, the new Pants Essence, which gives you 40% increased attack speed and also gives your allies 40% increased movement speed. This works very, very well with the next skill, which is Sweep Attack. So for Sweep Attack, we're using the main hand essence, which changes your primary attack to a sweep, and it will swirl the flail while you're on your horse. And also the MVP of this build, which is the Helmet Essence, which gives you 2.4 seconds of stun, cannot occur on the same target more than once every 4 seconds, and it has a 35% chance to do so. But as you'll see, we're kind of stacking attack speed on this build, which makes this stun more likely to happen, and it's extremely good in my opinion. And then lastly, we're using Spinning Shield, which I'll explain why we're using this skill. It might be a bit of a strange choice, but I'll explain why we're using it. And then finally, we're using Sacred Fire as the primary attack, but you could use Punish. So now let's move on, quickly talk about the essence. So like I said, we're using the Iron Faith. This gives you the stun on Sweep Attack. We're still using the Hell Pilgrim Chest, which gives you the knockback immunity on Drawn Quarter. I don't see this essence ever being replaced if you play Drawn Quarter in your build, so we kind of have to include it. The only difference in playstyle, which I would say, is that you can't really use your horse when you're really far away from enemies. You want to be using it pretty close to your enemies so that you have the knockback immunity. If you're not very close to enemies, then you could always use it as soon as you have it off cooldown. But this is kind of a must-include essence for these kind of builds. We're still using the Sifket's Advantage, the one that gives the 39% horse duration. This is an extremely good essence to have. Next, we're using the new essence, the Harris of Steps. Like I said, this gives you the attack speed and also the movement speed for your allies. This is actually really, really nice in PvP, in my opinion. And having the extra movement speed for the allies, like every single match I've been, people have been complimenting me, saying, thank you for making me move at super speed. I'm really happy to play with you. So this essence is actually pretty good as a support essence and a utility essence for Crusader. I've been playing it in dungeons as well as PvP recently, so I had to include it in this build. So next, for the main hand essences, we're using the new main hand essence, which works with Sweep Attack. So it says Sweep Attack now grants you a Holy Flail for a short duration, causing your primary attack to sweep through enemies in a wide arc. So now instead of doing the Sacred Fire primary attack, you're basically replacing your primary attack with a sweep attack, which is going to kind of move like a helicopter effect with the new horse essence, because you're going to be spinning your flail at really fast speed. So this works very, very well and will keep stunning your enemies with the Iron Faith helmet, like I said. So for the second main hand slot, we're using the Adamant Lash main hand, and this works with Spinning Shield, and it reads, when Spinning Shield hits an immobilized enemy, it will stun them for 3.2 seconds, can only affect same target once every 3 seconds. So what this helps to do is that it helps to increase the duration of the stun. I found that this works very, very well with the Iron Faith helmet and also with the Black Rose, which I'm using here. You could also have the Chip of Stone Flesh, which would work very, very well with this. But yeah, you kind of want to have one of those gems in this setup, I would say. This works very, very well with the Spinning Shield. And then finally, we've got the Offhand Essences, which is the Impregnable Orbit. So this one makes it so that Spinning Shield can be cast on your horse. So you've got 3 Spinning Shields which orbit you while you're on the horse, and they deal damage to enemies they pass through. The damage to this is actually pretty decent, but the main damage dealer in the build is still going to be the Sweep attack. But this is a very good support damage dealer, and it helps deal a bit more extra damage compared to the Falling Sword with the Luminous Rain Essence. This works very, very well with the main hand, like I said. And lastly, for the second offhand, we have the Resplendent Main. So this works with the Sacred Fire. It increases your primary attack speed by 10% for 2 seconds, stacking up to 3 times. So honestly, this doesn't work with the Sweep attack. We already have the primary attack speed being boosted by our Pants Essence for Sweep attack, but what this does is that if you get knocked off your horse, or if you have downtime from your horse, if you don't have any awakenings, then you could still do a decent amount of damage with Sacred Fire. But honestly, I don't recommend being off your horse for this build. You want to be on the horse most of the time, and if you don't have this essence, I wouldn't worry about it too much. You could always use Punish Primary Attack instead with the Me Out Mercy offhand, which is an older essence, and that does 57% increased damage to enemies suffering from loss of control, which would also work pretty well with this build. I just like having the increased attack speed here, so I'm using this. As for the set choices, I kept it very simple. I'm using the same set choices as before, so I'm using 4-piece Mount Bank, which gives you a very nice shield and a very nice defensive option. And I'm using 4-piece Vithus, which gives you 30% beneficial effect duration, which is crucial to keep your horse up, and also give you the 30% increased attack speed, which is also crucial because you want to be making your sweep attack as fast as possible and just getting off as many stuns as possible, because this is a 35% chance stun, and if you're doing as many attacks as possible per second, then you'll have more chance to get this stun to go off. So another option for the set pieces is, if you're feeling a bit courageous, you could always switch out the Mount Bank for a different set for more damage. Something like 4-piece Angman or maybe even 4-piece Grace would work good. But if you're a lower resonance player or just somebody who wants to have a bit more tankiness, then I would definitely recommend keeping the 4-piece Mount Bank. Is still working very well for this build. For the legendary gems for this build, recently I've been trying out a lower resonance setup with more optimal gems, just so I can test to see how this build performs for low resonance, and I'm proud to say that it works very, very well with lower resonance. So I'm using an Everlasting Torment rank 10, Pain of Subjugation, which increases the damage done to enemies suffering from loss of control, which works very well with the stun. I'm using Pain Clasp, I'm using Mother's Lament, Black Rose, which gives me even more immobilizing stuns. I'm using Bottled Hope and Bloodsoaked Jade for the rank 5s. These are very, very good with this build. And finally, I've been testing out the new 1-star gem, the Misery Elixir. This is working okay, I would say. You could always switch it out if you don't have it. But right now, this is what my gem setup looks like. As for some other gems which I would really recommend having with this build, so for the 2-star gems, Viper's Bite would work extremely well because it gives you that extra tick damage as well as reducing the enemy attack speeds. Another gem which would work very well would be the Abiding Curse, which reduces the enemy movement and attack speeds and works off your attacks. So since we're stacking attack speed with this build and we're doing quite a lot of attacks per second, that gem would work extremely well. Curseling would also work okay to give us a bit more extra CC, and Igneous Scorn would also work kind of okay. As for the 5 stars, like I mentioned, I'm using Bottled Hope and Bloodsoaked Jade. These are very, very good, probably the best gems to have for this build. The next one would be Chip of Stoneflesh. So Chip of the Stoneflesh would work extremely well with this build, I would say, because we have the stuns, and I wish I had one. Unfortunately, I don't, otherwise I would be using it. But if you have it at hand, then I would definitely recommend using it with this stun, and it will be extremely annoying for your opponents. The other gem which I'd really recommend to have is Gloom Cask. This would work extremely well with this build because we have a very high primary attack speed, so it just procs a lot more often and does a really decent amount of damage. Starfire Shard would also work very well with more of the deep, especially. Both of those gems which provide extra CC and knockback onto enemies, and it would work very, very well in this build. And then finally, the new gem, the Roiling Consequence, just overall a very good gem with this build, I would say. Let's quickly talk about the Awakenings now. So having Awakenings is pretty nice to have in this build, and I've actually tried to awaken most of the slots here. So this gives you a sweep attack cooldown, and these 3 slots also give you Drawn Quarter cooldown, which is really good, because if you awaken these 3, you'll get the maximum cooldown for Drawn Quarter, which means you can be on the horse a lot longer, and most of the time with this build you do want to be on the horse just to have the really fast attack speed of sweep attack. So I'd recommend getting these 3 if you already have 3 awakenings. And then these 2, they give you damage. So this one gives sweep attack damage, and like I said, sweep attack does the majority of damage in this build. Your main goal with this build isn't really to be a damage dealer. You're more focused on doing CC and kind of finishing off enemies, but it's still very nice to have this extra 10% damage for sweep attack. This one gives you 10% damage to spinning shield, which isn't really a must-have. I mean, it's nice to have the extra damage, but I'm not using it in this build, like you can see. And then finally, this one is pretty nice also. This gives you a 10% cooldown to spinning shield. So most of these slots actually give you cooldown. It's just these 2 which give damage. And then finally, the Resplendent Main. This one you don't really want to awaken. I mean, if you have 8 awaken slots, then be my guest, but this isn't really doing much for you. This is going to give you 10% Sacred Fire damage. I'll also show the secondary attributes which I have for this build. You kind of want to have a more balanced approach to these and kind of upgrade your armor a bit more. Currently I have really high armor pen because I switched over from the wizard class. So I've tried to maximize this, but it isn't really necessary. Like I said, you want to go more for armor and also resistance. But I have decent potency, which is also really helps with the stun effect on other players. And finally, for the Paragon tree, I'm using Warden tree. So I've got maximum points in Warden. This just gives you really nice damage reduction and also gives you increased size and increased life. So it's a very good tree to have. Honestly, if you don't have the Savior pet, the one that gives you the cheat death, then I would actually recommend playing with the Gladiator tree to get the cheat death from here. But since I have the Savior pet, then you should probably go with the Warden tree, which works very well in Battlegrounds. So now let's quickly talk about the skill rotation for this build. It's pretty simple rotation. You want to get on your horse, and then you want to be pressing your sweep attack and your shield when you get close to enemies. You don't want to be pressing it when you're too far away because the shield spin does have a pretty long cooldown, I would say. And you kind of want to be playing in bursts, so you want to be going in, and then as soon as you're low health, or you notice your Drawn Quarter having a cooldown, then you want to be pressing your Conjuration of Light and kind of trying to get away a bit from the enemies, or kind of waiting until your Drawn Quarter is back. So you will notice that you have kind of 1 or 2 seconds of Drawn Quarter downtime. Even if you have 3 Awakenings, you'll still have some downtime, and that's because of the Strife debuff to the Beneficial Effect duration. So you do want to have the Conjuration of Light to kind of fill in the gaps there and just help you to survive a bit more. So one thing I will say before moving on to show the gameplay for this build is that the strength of this build is not really going for kills. It's more just to annoy opponents and just being a complete menace in the Battlegrounds. You kind of want to work with your teammates just to secure kills. So you want to work with the damage dealers, let's say the wizards or the demon hunters or blood knights. You want to work with them and position yourself so that you keep constantly stunning the opponent's side and they can kind of deal damage. The good thing is that you have very excellent mobility with the Drawn Quarter, so if you do spot someone who's very low health, then you could always target them and kind of finish them off quickly, and then come back to support your teammates. So that's kind of the role of this build in a nutshell, and in 1v1 situations it actually works very well, but it can also work really, really well with group situations because you have this AoE stun and also AoE spinning shield. So you can kind of play a bit riskier, depending, like I said, if you have support from your teammates. So now I'll be showing the gameplay I had with this build in both Battlegrounds and also Tower PvP. So this build works excellent in Tower PvP, and I recommend you guys to try it out. So as soon as the match starts, I like to use my Drawn Quarter, and this will give my teammates the movement speed buff. You can see that they're running really fast behind me in that white trail, and we're just making our way to the first phase idle here. And you can see that here I'll pop my sweep attack and my spinning shield, and I actually got knocked back a bit from my horse there, but I could reactivate it again really quickly because I have the maximum cooldown. And once again, I'm going to try engage here and finish this player off. And you can see I'm just pressing my sweep attack and my shield as soon as I get close to the enemies. So I'm just checking the mini-map here, scouting where everyone's going. And I decided to kind of make my way to the second phase, but I'm going to try to engage with these guys here. And you can see how well the stun is working when it's a solo player. They can barely do anything against me. I'm just going to try to finish off this player here, but he's doing very good damage, so I have to be a bit careful. And this is the power of the Savior pair and also the Conjuration of Light. That's why I wouldn't recommend switching it out. I wouldn't have survived there if it wasn't for them. And now I'm trying to re-engage again, as you can see, but my horse is off cooldown. So bear in mind that this setup that I'm using is slightly different from what I've shown, and this is because I was gradually optimizing this build over time, over the week. So rest assured that the final version is what I've shown at the start of the video, and that's what I've been playing with recently, and it's definitely working even better than what's seen in this clip. But I'm actually using Gloom Cask in this clip, and as you can see, it's performing quite well here. So I ended up dying here, but I did get quite a few kills, and I'm kind of being a pest to the opponents, which is the whole goal of this build. So like I said, you want to be as annoying as possible, and you want to support your damage dealers as much as you can. So here I'm just trying to re-engage in this group here, but I have to be a bit careful because I can see that there's not many blue dots around me. So I'm just trying to get away here and just waiting for backup a bit, but at the same time I'm also able to stun the group very well while getting away. So I can see here that some of my teammates are coming in from behind, so I feel a bit more confident to re-engage here. So once again, this player's solo. I'm just going to try. He unfortunately immuned himself, but I'll get another chance to re-engage very soon. Just waiting for my horse cooldown here, and like I said, you could always press your Conjuration of Light just to fill in the gap between your horse cooldown until you get the Drawn Quarter again. So once again here I'm re-engaging and I'm just stunning, as you can see, as many players as I can. Have to be a bit careful. Don't be scared to use your horse to kind of get away, because you will be able to re-engage very quick, especially if you have a couple of awakenings. You won't have to wait that long for your horse to be back online. So here I spotted a really nice group on the left here, and I'm going to go in and try stun them. And it's stunning them very, very well, as you can see. And I killed one of them, and now the right side is kind of having a lot more enemies, so I'm also going to go there. Just getting knocked back a bit. Here I actually pre-popped my immune, which you can also sometimes do, but I wouldn't recommend doing it all the time unless you see a huge group of enemies. You kind of want to be using your Conjuration of Light when you're probably about 20% or 30% life, or you see that you're going to get knocked off and die. So I'm going to go re-engage with that group once again. And as you can see, sometimes I'm not pressing my horse when I'm really far away from the enemies. And that's because the chest essence has been nerfed, so the knockback immunity doesn't last that long. So sometimes I'm actually moving a bit closer while I'm dismounted, and then I'm pressing my horse. And as you can see, these guys are just getting shredded by my stuns. And if you have a bit more optimized gem setup than me, you'll actually be able to CC them a lot more, and you have very good control over the enemies. But it's really fun playing this build, and it's quite refreshing because you can actually traverse the whole map with the horse, which isn't the usual Crusader playstyle. You're kind of more slow and tanky. This one kind of lets you move around and control the match a bit more. You always have to remember to press your sweep attack, otherwise you won't be doing the stuns. The traditional primary attack won't be doing that much for you. I can see now that we're getting close to the kill count, so I'm fairly confident we're going to win this match. And you can just see how annoying I am. Like, just imagine that you're on the other side, you're going to get really frustrated with the amount of CC. So I'm just going to finish this match off here. And you'll notice my positioning, a lot of the time I like to be ahead of the damage dealer. So here you can see that there's this Demon Hunter. And what I'm always trying to do is be ahead of him so that I can stun the enemies in front of him. And he can just keep shooting his arrows from a distance. That's kind of always what you want to be doing. Compared to the old Crusader build, maybe you don't want to be on the idle quite as much. But you will also be able to go back quickly and support people on the idle if need be, because your horse is moving really, really fast. So as you can see here, I had the highest number of assists. I didn't have the highest number of kills, but that's to be expected. But like I said, this wasn't with my most optimized build. And with the most optimized build, you'll be getting a few more kills actually, and you'll be doing a lot better. So I'm just going to show the ending of this match here, because I just want to showcase how well this build can CC players and stun everyone. So as you can see, we're on attack this time. And I've just gone in and this guy's getting stunned, not having a great time. And I can also quickly move back to the idle and help support there. So we have a Blood Knight here lunging at me. I'm just going to heal up here and then re-engage. My horse is back on line now, so let's go re-engage. So this player is getting stunned here, also by my Black Rose effect, which is doing pretty well. And we're just pushing the idle here, pretty uncontested. And as soon as they come, I'm going to stun them instantly, as you can see. So I'm still able to do very well at pushing the idle while also stunning everyone. And you can see that everyone's just getting annoyed. The smoke visual effect from the horse is also pretty annoying, because it indirectly causes the opponents not to be able to see much of what's going on, so they're getting stunned and they can't really see their character either, so it's pretty nice. But yeah, we managed to close out this match pretty quick here. So now let's see how this build performs in the Tower War PvP, which just recently came back. And this build works extremely well in both BGs and in Tower. So because of the horse, you can actually move very fast. As you can see here, I'm just trying to fight this wizard, who's actually one of my friends from another server. Shout out to him, but yeah, he went down pretty fast, and I procced his savior. Just healing up here. And once again, I'm going to go in and stun this player. So the really nice thing about this is that you can have a lot more 1v1 fights in this tower mode, because the map is so big and wide. So this actually works a bit better for this build, in my opinion. And if you see somebody trying to take over the tower, you can just keep kind of going in and out, stunning them, which becomes a nightmare, because they'll never be able to activate the tower, and they'll never be able to touch you because you're just moving so fast. So once again here, you can see that when I'm not near enemies, I'm not actually using my horse too much, because I want to kind of preserve this knockback immunity effect, and once I'm a bit closer, that's when I'm activating my horse. So you just have to be a bit careful and work around the chest. So as you can see there, because my knockback immunity ran out, I got knocked off the horse, but once again I could kind of use the horse to run away, because the cooldown is quite low. So I'm just healing up here and going to keep my eyes on the towers to see which ones the opponents... Looks like they're going for the ones on the right, and there's not many teammates there, so I have to be a bit careful here. Oh, and we have a Demon Hunter with us, so I'm just stunning here and trying to kill them through my Savior, but once again, with Savior and the Conjuration combo, I could kind of get out safely and heal up once again. And here, I'm going to fight the wizard once again. Let's see if we can kill him this time. And we procced his savior once more, so he ran away. Okay, we did manage to secure the kill. Cool. So we are doing quite well here. My team is successfully defending the tower on the left. And that guy went down pretty quickly there, I'm not going to lie. So I'm not sure how the balancing in the tower PvP works, actually. I haven't played all that many matches. I think I've actually played like 5 or so matches with this build, and I won 4 out of 5 of them, so it is working pretty well, but I'll have to get a bit more experience just to see how this tower PvP works. Because not going to lie, I wasn't a big fan of it the first time it came round, and I wasn't really happy with it being back, but let's see if the balancing is a bit better this time. So you can see how well this build works in 1v1 situations. Like, they don't really get a chance to attack just because they're stunned all of the time. So once again here, I'm just holding my position on the right and kind of scouting to see where the enemies are going to attack. Looks like they're going to attack the tower in the middle here. So I'm going to engage. We have this monk here who does really crazy damage. You can see my health went from like 100 to 0 real quick. And I procced my Savior and Gladiator here, but once again, saved me. And in this clip, I think I was actually playing with the Angmans variation, so my damage is a little bit better. But with Mountbank, I would actually recommend playing with that because you'll have a bit more survivability. But you could always try both and see which one you like. So I'm actually going to skip to the end of this match here because there wasn't really much going on and the enemy team kind of gave up. So just so we can see the stats. So you can see here that I did pretty well. I had 9 kills and 1 death, which is pretty good. Let's do one last clip on attackers for BG. And this had a pretty good moment. You can see kind of the real power of this build. Stunning players, especially groups of players. And I'd really recommend you guys to try this build out. I actually haven't seen any Crusaders playing this build. I actually theory crafted this build with the help of one of my good friends on the server. Shout out to Vimily. And yeah, this build is just performing a lot better than I expected. And I'm really happy to see that Crusader has a different option to play for PvP. So if you do have the new Essence for Crusader, then do give this one a go, guys, before you think of class changing if you're worried about the nerfs. As always, the comment section are open if you guys have any comments or suggestions for the build. But for now, guys, I'll be signing off. Thank you all once again so much for watching, and I'll see you guys all in the next video.